This is The Guardian.
Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly and a really fun night of the greatest league in the world. An exhausting game at the City Ground. Chris Wood being Chris Wood early on. Liverpool not quite at it. Forest defending heroically before the golden touch of Arne Slot. Two subs combining with their first touches. Forest were dead on their feet towards the end, but Matt Sells and Cowen meant they get a deserved point. Elsewhere, Man City give up a 2-goal lead with 10 minutes to go at Brentford, who could have won it right at the end. A wonderful moment for Reece James as Chelsea get a late point at home to Bournemouth, while a first win for Graham Potter at the London Stadium. Some incredibly generous playing out from the back from Marco Silva's men to welcome Graham back to the Premier League. There's some FA Cup to round up, a salmon-esque header in Millwall and some penalties in Leighton. Garnacho and Werner to Napoli will round up the transfer gossip. And then there's a bit of time for some below-the-belt tweeting from Lazio's Falconer. Your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Week. Tommy says, why has Barry been allowed a winter break while everyone else has had to work overtime? Are you rested, Barry?
I am fully rested, yes, and refreshed, thank you.
No problem at all. See you driving towards April and May now. Lars Sivertsen, hello.
Hello, how are you, Max? Could you have done with a winter break, you feel?
It's a good question. Yes, is the answer, I reckon. Robyn Cowen, hello.
Hi, Max. I guess you're wishing a winter break. That probably will come in about a month or two. That your hope.
Yes, I absolutely will be. The arrival of Willie Rushden. It's imminent. That's all we can say. Let's start the City Ground. Nottingham Forest 1, Liverpool 1. A brilliant game, I thought. Forest took the lead. I think they were better for about an hour or so. Liverpool weren't quite at it. Then there was that double substitution, and then Forest were just hurling themselves at it. Barry, you were on the minute by minute. Do you share my feelings?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the game. And interestingly, you say in your intro that Forest deserved a point. I said as much at the end of my minute by minute report and got an angry email from someone who I presume is a Liverpool fan saying they didn't deserve that point. All they did was park the bus, which I thought was a little bit harsh. But Forest did what Forest tend to do. They ceded possession to their rivals and attacked on the counter. And when they did cede possession to Liverpool, Liverpool didn't really know what to do with it. They seemed to run out of ideas quite quickly. In the opening half, I think they had 9 pot shots from distance, none of which went anywhere near troubling Matt Sells in the Forest goal. They scored with their very first attack, which I think it was pretty much the first time they got out of their own half. Lovely, beautifully taken goal by Chris Wood after Mo Salah lost possession in his own half. And then Liverpool sort of flicked the switch around the, 65, 70 minute mark. And having not really, Forest forced them wide, made them send in crosses, which Murillo and Milenkovic were well able to deal with. But then once Arne Slot made his substitution, a double substitution, which was inspired, led to a goal immediately. And Diogo Jota kind of changed the game as Forest got more tired, the spaces opened up, and having had to do practically nothing for 70 minutes, Matt Sells was the busiest man on the pitch in the last 20 minutes.
I mean, we are contractually obliged to say that Barry and I both predicted that Forest would get relegated. They've just scraped above 40 points now, so are probably safe. But, I mean, Robyn, they're defending. And we'll get to Liverpool, and they did have way more chances. And, if one team would have won it, it would have been Liverpool. But I thought Murillo was just amazing in this game. And that moment when he made a sort of block tackle and then shot from the halfway line. Love that guy.
Yeah, I think Nuno probably wasn't best pleased about the subsequent decision of him to shoot from there. But he's been amazing. He's a great player to watch. Even you don't really say that about defenders, do you? But he's fantastic. Him and Milenkovic have formed a fantastic partnership. And I get why, if you're a Liverpool fan, you're frustrated. But parking the bus and throwing yourself at things and having a good goalkeeper is a legitimate way to try and hang on to a result. It's fine. Actually, Brentford did a sort of they were slightly more progressive maybe against Man City. We'll get to them, but it's fine. That's, you're allowed to do that. I mean, Matt Sells again was absolutely unbelievable. You know, they had such a problem, didn't they, with goalkeepers in the past 2 seasons? You know, Matt Turner and Vlachodimos, just not up to scratch. And you know, they got this guy. I think he was like 6 million or something, and he's been unbelievable. I think he's on for the Golden Glove. And yeah, fantastic for them. Just another really impressive performance. And again, it seemed like a really just great atmosphere at a great ground. So yeah, I think they were good value for it, actually.
Yeah, I think so. And like every time that he and Milenkovic head it clear, it goes about 5 miles. I think they when they clear it, they clear it properly, and they can play. I thought Nico Williams against Salah as well. Like he must right now be absolutely shattered. Just the amount of just like, you know, all of the Forest players I get, and actually that midfield, Lars, of Yates and Anderson and Gibbs White, like they're all good, technically good, and tireless.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of effort that goes into it. I had a slightly different experience of this game because I sort of were watching the other games and tuned in for the last sort of 25 minutes, at which point there was only one team on the pitch, you know, as has been covered. So I just thought Liverpool were desperately unlucky not to get the goal that their performance more than warranted. But that, of course, is selling Nottingham Forest short to some extent, I guess, but just a lot of this good Nottingham Forest stuff happened while I was watching other things. There's nothing wrong with like parking the bus, but it requires some degree of luck. I mean, Liverpool had 14 shots from inside the box in this game. Usually that'll get you more than one goal. But it is also fascinating to see how different the game of football becomes when you have one team that has no real interest in leaving their box or going out or opening up space. It becomes because there are few of those teams around in the Premier League now. It is a real challenge for an attacking team to find openings, and it kind of it looked at times as if like there was a power play in the ice hockey, or it looked like handball, which is a good sport. Or just there was one team just against a very hunkered down team that was just kind of trying to stop everything and trying to find openings where there are almost no openings. It's kind of a difficult thing to do. It occurred to me with Diogo Jota when he comes on. It's a real shame for Liverpool and for him that he keeps having these injury issues, because he is very, very sharp, and the way he just came on and immediately got a goal of that set piece. I looked at his sort of average. I mean, he's averaging, I think it's 0.67 goals per 90 on the field. So if he could stay fit for an entire season, that's a 25 goal season for but it's just, it doesn't look like that'll ever happen for him. But yeah, tremendous defending. But really, I think Liverpool were kind of unfortunate not to get a win, really.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's sort of, you know, it's how you digest a football match, isn't it? If the first hour has been like really brilliant defending and a team that's taken the lead, you're sort of, and also the underdogs, right? So you have all that narrative leading to this last half hour where Barry, we have mentioned it, but Liverpool really stepped it up because they hadn't looked at it. Like they were like shooting for anywhere and those final balls weren't happening. And I guess part of their thinking is, well, Forest will be knackered because if you don't have the ball, it's just much more tiring.
Yeah, I get that. I have a feeling that listening to Lars' analysis, a lot of Nottingham Forest fans will be quite angry that they're being reduced to this sort of Marino at Porto status, which I think is a little unfair. You know, they are second in the league. They're not scrabbling around for points in a bid to stay up. They're second in the league, second on merit. If you look at their team, their starting 11, there's not a single player there who's not having an excellent season, you know. So what Nuno has done there, I appreciate he has spent a lot of money, or the club has spent a lot of money, but that is a really good team he's assembled. And they're playing to their strengths. Maybe they were a little lucky, but, you know, as has been mentioned on the pod before, the goalkeeper is as important a player as anyone else on the pitch. So, you know, Matt Sells, it's his job to make good saves, and that's what he did. But while Liverpool probably should have won, I think Mo Salah had a poor game last night. He looks very tired, very leggy. I've advocated in the past for managers and my fellow great football mind, Carlo Ancelotti, has said the same. You know, just give players a holiday during the season, give them 2 weeks off. I think now might be a good time to to send Mo Salah off to the Maldives to kick back for a couple of weeks, and maybe pretend he's got a hamstring strain or something to appease the fans. But I think Forest did deserve a draw last night. Just their defending was outstanding, and it's a shame really because the goal they gave away is really soft. The smallest man on the pitch scoring a header at a corner while being marked by Chris Wood and Murillo. That shouldn't have happened. So Chris Wood was kind of fed up about that after the game, and I can see why.
I guess deserve is an interesting word in this context, but because there's obviously no shortage of effort and spirit from the Nottingham Forest players. And I've already caveated what I said by I saw the last sort of 25 minutes of the game, in which point Liverpool had completely taken over, and I'm sure they did a better job nullifying Liverpool before that. I would just humbly submit that if you concede that many shots from from good locations that often, you will most often not get any points. But it's also clear that Nuno has them really well organised. They know where to stand. There's a really good sort of mix of graft and talent. I mean, because they do have real threat when they run at the break. I mean, Gibbs White, I didn't think wasn't super impactful because I guess it wasn't his kind of game by the time I was watching. But like Ilanga and Hudson-Odoi can really run at you when you get out. And Yates and Anderson are really there's a lot of running in this team when they have an opportunity to do so. And Murillo and Milinkovic is really one of the better centre-half pairings in the league this season. So I'm not taking anything away from their performance in that sense. And also, I don't think it's necessarily backhanded to say that they were defending deep. That's just a thing that happened. You can do that really well. Like there's no that is part of football for sure.
Just want to talk about the Chris Wood finish, because that's kind of low-key a really, really good finish. A really great through ball. It's his weaker foot, I know it, but that's just a man who's full of confidence that he took that first time and just knew exactly the sort of weight and the direction to put it. I just think, obviously he's a man in the form of his life, but it just... Yeah,
and yet you still don't think he's that good. Do you know? He obviously is, but do you know what I mean? There's something so... I've seen so many centre forwards who are that shape and move like that and aren't as good as him. And I don't know if that means he's even better because he's just not blessed with like grace or pace, or I wish I knew something else that rhymed with those two things. But I totally agree with you. It's effortless, that finish. And it really wasn't easy. Liverpool's last 4 games, they've drawn with Manchester United, lost to Spurs, beaten Accrington and drawn with Forest. Is this we're waiting for their blip, Barry? Is this their blip?
I suppose it's a blip of sorts. I think, when does a blip become a wobble, become a crisis? Things move very quickly in football. So
it's not wobble yet, is it? We're not in wobble territory. I don't think.
Okay, well, it's certainly a blip going by their previously high standards. Forest are still the only team that have beaten them in the league. They've now taken 4 points off them, which I imagine most Forest fans would not have expected before the start of the season. They're still 6 points ahead with a game in hand. So, and that a deficit which may be reduced if Arsenal beat Spurs tonight, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
So, I think they're all right.
Yeah, it's probably a better point for them than Forest if we're talking specifically about the title race. Robyn, do you see Forest finishing in the top 4? Is it a case of getting out for every game like this one? I mean, they clearly they are. They've lasted quite a lot of the course, haven't they?
No, exactly. And I think the sample size is big enough now that we can say yes, absolutely. I don't think it's interesting, the comparisons with Leicester. It's not the same because Leicester sort of got a massive lead, didn't they? And they didn't really let it go and everyone sort of fell away. So in terms of title race, I think, it's obviously still Liverpool's.
Liz McColgan. She would do that, wouldn't she?
Yeah,
sort of take a massive lead and then just crawl over the line.
Exactly.
Forest haven't done that.
No. So there's kind of, in terms of title, they're technically chasing, but it does feel a bit like Leicester in terms of they are on an absolute roll and they have the same, very similar starting 11, and they just, as Lars was saying, they just know their jobs. They know where to stand. They know exactly what they're doing. I remember that I did their 1-0 win over at Southampton very early on in the season. I wasn't that impressed with them. They kind of got over the line just about. And Southampton had quite a lot of chances, actually, I remember in that game. But that was pretty back in August or September. So it just they've just been slowly building. And when you get on that roll, I think that obviously tactically they're set up really well by Nuno, and he's got the component parts. But I do think a lot of it is momentum and confidence in what they're doing, with a lot of very talented players like Leicester did have. You know, they had Mahrez, Kante, and Vardy was obviously, and so yeah, there are similarities. And yeah, as I say, I think a bit like the Leicester season, there are enough teams that are inconsistent enough for them to get in the top four. I think so.
Being my usual boring self, looking at the XG defensively, they are the real deal. Like they've according to they've conceded the third lowest XG number in the league, which you mentioned the world sample size. I mean, after 21 games, there's nothing flukish about that. They are a genuinely brilliant defensive team. Down the other end, it's a little bit more iffy. I think there's something like 15th in the league for XG created, and you are kind of relying on Chris Wood scoring almost every time the ball goes near him in the box, which he seems to be doing. So, I mean, that is a slightly more sort of logic-defying thing that I maybe wouldn't expect to last for 38 games. But again, I don't think their position in the upper end of the table is totally flukish, because their defence is the real deal.
So the G-Tech, Brentford 2, Man City 2. And I guess in Forest's favour for top four is the other candidates keep dropping points. And just when you thought Robyn, Man City were back on the horse, they let in 2 in the last 10 minutes. And Brentford could have won it in injury time, which would have been sensational.
Yeah, no, it was a really good game, really end to end, and both teams had loads of chances to score in the first half. Somehow it was 0-0, and then City 2 really good finishes from Phil Foden. The first
is amazing. That finish,
the deft finish. I mean, and an absolutely awesome assist from De Bruyne, who was excellent today, but it just again shows they have a really soft underbelly, and like the goal from Wissa was one you don't really see in the Premier League a lot there to make it 2-1. I know it was a bit fortunate. Ake sort of missed a header and it dropped to him in sort of the 6-yard box, but it seemed like he had time to sort of make a cup of tea and drink it and then put it in the net. It was a bit mad. At 2-1, City were pushing, and they were pushing really high and getting, looking to get a third. And I really thought, okay, this does look slightly different from City, because they weren't sort of starting to panic. But then, again, cross. They just couldn't deal with a cross. Norgard with a really good header. Akanji sort of missed it, and he looked absolutely devastated. And then, as you say, right at the end, Ake headed one off the line from Brian Mbeumo. So, they were actually quite lucky to get away. But the fact they were 2-0 up, it's just it's real symptomatic of what they're going through at the moment. I don't know if you saw post-match. Did you see Pep with Ortega?
No.
Did you not see that? Oh, goodness me.
Oh, was he doing some more classic Pep?
Yeah, some performative dressing down of a player in front of people.
Yeah, again, like right in the middle of the pitch, he was kind of shouting at him, but sort of hugging him at the same time. Really weird stuff, and it was a real case of like to Ortega, like blink twice if you need help, because this looked really. it kind of made me feel uncomfortable. Actually, it was very odd. And I don't know about...
He's so unbearable when he does that.
Oh, my God, yeah. I mean, it's worth checking out, but it's kind of... Yeah, as I said, it's really... Pep's weird. It's uncomfortable. And, it's just... I guess we'll see. It sounds like they're going to make a few signings in January. We'll see if that turns things on their head. But it just seems like it's a mentality thing at the moment.
I also massively enjoyed this game, and I would argue that City are, like, for the neutral, the most fun they've been in a very long time. Because the thing that City did when they were at their best, that they just kind of strangled the opponent and just stopped a football game from breaking out just by being so sharp in possession and so quick to regain it. But they are not those things at the moment. They're not able to keep the ball the way they used to. They're not quick in regaining it. So at some point last night, there were 4 games I wanted to watch at the same time. Like, the games were all interesting in some way. There was like, and I can't do, 2 is my limit. So when City go 2-0 up, you're immediately thought as well, okay, we'll put on something else then. But then, hang on, you just kind of don't, because at no point did you feel that it would be impossible for Brentford to score 2 goals here. Because as much as City has started getting some results, they're still doing that thing that they were doing a few months ago and that we were talking about so much of just every time someone runs at them, that they find a way through. Like, they can't stop opponents from running at them and creating things. And for a neutral, it makes them arguably more fun to watch, but they're still phenomenally dysfunctional as a unit. And but I did also enjoy having... I enjoyed the Kevin De Bruyne cross for the first goal. I thought was wonderfully old school, because it's like you don't typically see the sort of outside of the fullback cross. Yeah, usually they'll try to nip past him or go on the inside. That was like an old fashioned sort of David Beckham sort of. I'm not fast enough to run past this guy. I'm just going to swing the cross around him. Beautiful stuff. I enjoyed that.
Sticking with you, the City are looking at a few players.
I would imagine.
Kusanov from Lens, Vito Rice from Palmeiras, Andrea Cambiasso from Juve, and Omar Marmoush from Eintracht. I've just written over to Lars.
Yeah, different players. I mean, they're kind of adding a bunch of defenders, which I guess kind of makes sense. Marmoush is an interesting one. He's kind of a wide forward type of guy. I mean, he plays as a striker, but as part of a 2. So he's not a number 9 as such. I guess the very, very simplified version of saying it is that he's probably meant to fill the sort of Alvarez-shaped hole in that attack as someone who can both play as a striker if Haaland needs a rest, but can also back up Haaland on the field. He's very fast. He scored a lot of goals in the Bundesliga, so he will inject something into that attack. And in terms, I've heard good things about Kusanov for Lens. I don't watch as much Ligue 1 as maybe I should, but he's a sort of he's a young he's a 20-year-old defender from Uzbekistan. Love that. Gonna get some people from Central Asia involved in the Premier League. We don't have enough of those.
You're right. I can't think of the last Uzbek who made it.
There'll be huge excitement in Tashkent if the transfer goes through, I would imagine.
Jamaluddin Abdujaparov is my favourite Uzbek. The Tashkent Terror, who used to win sprints in the Tour de France all the time.
Okay. We did briefly mention that Kyle Walker potentially leaving on Monday's pod, and wondering if this is a big start of if this is a start of a big clear out. And I'm just surprised Pep can be bothered, Barry. Just seems like, for what he's achieved, seems like such a lot he's got to do now.
Yeah. Kyle Walker wasn't in the squad last night. Looks like he's off. Not sure where he's going to go. I can kind of understand why he might want to leave the UK, because he's just become tabloid fodder relating to stuff that's not really anyone's business apart from his and his wife. As for Pep being bothered, I was sure he would leave at the end of the season. I was surprised when he signed a new contract. He doesn't seem to be enjoying what's going on. Obviously, we'll have the result of the inquiry and the charges in the coming weeks, so who knows what will happen then. And his team are not playing according to his wishes, which must be a source of great infuriation for him. But he clearly has decided, yes, I want to stay, and sure, look, he can leave any time he wants, whether he's signed a new contract or not. He has earned that right.
Yeah, true. Before we end part one, coincidentally, Jonathan Wilson was talking about Tony Book on Monday's pod, and the former Man City captain and managers passed away at the age of 90. Honours as a City player included a First Division title in 1968, the FA Cup a year later. City said it's with huge sadness and the heaviest of hearts that we announced the passing of former Man City captain and manager Tony Book, aged 90. A true club legend in every sense of the word. He made 315 appearances for City in total between 1966 and 1974. May he rest in peace. We'll be back in a sec. Welcome to part two of the Guardian Football Weekly. So Chelsea 2, Bournemouth 2. Let's start with that free kick from Reece James, Baz. Because what a moment for him. I mean, without injury, he could be top of the very long list of England right-backs. He's only played 5 times this season. Last appearance in the league was 8 minutes against Arsenal. He's only started 8 games since the start of last season. So just to see him on a pitch and then doing something, lovely is lovely.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those players who seems to have been out for so long. I'd kind of completely forgotten he existed, which is, he won't care, but it does speak to the fact that he hasn't been around for a long time because he just has rotten luck with injuries for whatever reason. To see him score that goal was great. I mean, he had a lot of help from Bournemouth, whose wall left a lot to be desired. If a builder did that to you, you'd think twice about paying for their work or get them to knock it down and rebuild it where you wanted it originally. But fair play to him, and rescued a point for Chelsea, who I imagine will be very frustrated at not winning that game because Bournemouth have so many players out through injury. I think the word was they only had 12 or 13 fit senior players, and they were well worth their point in the end. Probably should have taken all three. They didn't have a fit striker, so Semenya played, and he won a penalty, scored a wonderful goal. That's now 5 games without a win for Chelsea in the top flight, which
is that wobble? Is that wobble?
That's a wobble,
okay.
Big time. Yeah, I think Bournemouth were quite lucky not to finish the game with 10 men because I think David Brooks should definitely have been sent off. Although I think you probably do deserve a pass if it's Mark Cucurella who's riled you up to the point of, committing assault and battery. Was it a hair tug or a clothesline? I've watched it a few times. I'm not quite sure.
Evidence was inconclusive, I thought, on that one, actually, because I saw a lot of people be upset. Oh, he's pulled his hair, which is what Jack Stevens did, and he got sent off. But I've looked at the replay many times. I don't think it's entirely clear that he does pull the hair, or as you said, it was more of a clothesline, at which point I guess the yellow card you can get away with. I quite like that the ref was sent to the monitor and went...
I think a clothesline feels like a red card offence.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think that was definitely a red card offence, whatever it was.
He doesn't hit him. He sticks an arm out. I like the fact that the ref was sent to the monitor and looked at it and went, no, I'm happy with the yellow for that. I'm going to stick by that decision. I think the referee should have the authority to do that. And to, I've seen the replay. I'm confident in what I'm looking at. And I think this is a yellow, not a red. I think that's completely fine, really.
Interestingly, in the Liverpool Forest game, at one stage, Alexis McAllister committed a foul and the whistle blew, and the ball broke towards Trent Alexander-Arnold. He went to punch it back in the direction of the site of the free kick, but accidentally punched Elliot Anderson in the face.
Yeah, he did.
And he looked so worried. He really looked worried. And the ref sort of was listening to the VAR, and you could see the colour drain out of Alexander-Arnold's face, but he quite rightly got away with it because it was a total accident.
Yeah, I mean, I think making the most of it could be described as the way Elliot Anderson treated that slight brush to his face.
See also Mark Cucurella.
Well, of course. And the way I've said it before, he is such a shit, isn't he? Like, he really did.
Yeah.
Like, he almost knocked David Brooks out early in the game. And I don't know if that's influenced the ref's decision. The PGMOL said VAR recommended an on-field review for a possible red card to Brooks for violent conduct. Upon review, the referee deemed that the challenge on Cucurella was a reckless action and not violent conduct, and issued a yellow card to Brooks, which sounds to me like the PGMOL just tweeting, "We had a look and we decided that David Brooks is not that kind of player." That's what it sort of felt like.
There's an amendment to the laws of the game here, which I would support, which is that after a certain number of rotations on the side of the victim, whatever the offence was, it gets downgraded. Like, if you roll a certain number of time, it gets taken down from a red to a yellow, or for a yellow to nothing, depending on like the number of rotations. I think that should be implemented. There's really there's no reason to behave like this.
It was surprising that he was on the pitch. I thought we talked about that Phil Foden finish, Robyn. Cole Palmer's finish. I have it as an 8 out of 10 on the Glenn Hoddle v Oxford sitting down the keeper scale. It's on Monday we were talking about how, Timo Werner cannot score a 1-on-1, and it's quite astonishing. But the way Palmer makes that look so easy is beautiful.
Well, and actually, it's the darting run in behind. He totally loses the defender, and then I know it's his celebration. It's cold Palmer, but is there anyone who's that composed when in front of a goalkeeper? And there's a great photo of him sort of looking at Mark Travers, sort of with almost sort of disdain after he's put it in the back of the net. You just think, oh my word, I'm not sure he'd recover from that. He's just, as I say, his composure's just unmatched. I think it's unbelievable.
So sorry, have I missed something here? I presume the celebration was Chili Palmer, as in what's that film with John Travolta and Danny DeVito?
What's the film with John Travolta and Danny DeVito in it? I don't know. Saturday Night Fever? Is Danny DeVito the lead in Grease alongside John Travolta?
I'd be very surprised if
Be cool.
John Travolta plays a character called Chili Palmer. And
Cole Palmer didn't really know who Dennis Bergkamp was, so I'm not sure.
Has Cole Palmer seen Be Cool?
Get Shorty is the movie.
That's what I was trying to say.
Get Shorty.
I really don't think Cole Palmer has.
He may have done.
Has Cole Palmer seen Get Shorty? I think that's very
great if he was like a cinephile from sort of 90s, 80s films. I'd love that.
Is it a sort of? Is it a movie? Is it a movie deep cut, or is it a slightly naff pun on his name? You be the judge. Like which is the more likely thing here? No.
I can see Cole Palmer and Mark Commode doing a podcast together, and us enjoying it tremendously. Anyway, who knows if he has seen Get Shorty? Producer Joel thought it was a film called Be Cool. I mean, I don't know that film. Maybe Travolta and DeVito have got a whole oeuvre together. Who knows? I did think that Chelsea probably deserved to win this game. I mean, I thought Nicholas Jackson, who has had a good season, Be Cool, sorry, more importantly, is apparently a sequel to Get Shorty. So, like, if he loved Get Shorty enough to develop his own celebration, he's almost certainly seen Be Cool, hasn't he? Yes, Nicholas Jackson, Robyn, is on the Timo Werner scale of things. I mean, he's nowhere near down there, but do you know what I mean? Like, he blows hot and cold, I guess.
Yeah, he does. I mean, I think comparing him with Timo Werner is a little bit harsh. But yeah, he had one of those games, didn't he? Hit the post, and then he really should have scored from a header. I think their XG was a lot better than Bournemouth's, but you know that's again, it's a sign that Bournemouth are just a really, really impressive side, as mentioned. The fact they managed to dig that out after so many injuries, playing with such clarity, really, really impressive.
I thought there were shades of the Palace game, really, for Chelsea, in the sense that there was a game where they were in total control, where they had enough chances to put the ball to bed. Well, you could do that. You could also put the game to bed. But they were just a little bit wasteful. And then there's something about they can't quite manage these situations well enough. Maybe there's a little bit of a lack of experience, maybe a little bit of lack of know-how. Defense isn't quite as solid as it should be, and it's just they've gone a few games now without winning. I wouldn't necessarily call it like a big crisis yet, just because I think the performances are still pretty good. Like the game against Palace, the game here, even the game against Ipswich, where they created many, many more chances than the opponent. They're not playing badly. They're just not managing the game super well. And and the subject of Be Cool, I mean, that's very much what Nico Jackson needs to. I mean, he's the one who needs to see that. I mean, Cole Palmer is cool enough already. He doesn't need to watch this film. But Nico Jackson, I think, had 7 shots in this game, and I think his sort of heart rate was pretty high when he launched them. He can learn from his strike partner, I think. Or from John Travolta, as it were.
Yeah, I like the idea of watching films about being cool, making you cool, and then you act like, like I would have just acted like the Fonz all day, and I just don't think I'd have carried it off, to be honest. And look, yeah, exactly. Hey, that's how I should start every Football Weekly, shouldn't I? To the London Stadium, West Ham 3, Fulham 2. Fun game for Graham Potter's first game in charge of West Ham, home game in charge of West Ham. Big win against a good side. I felt, Robyn, they were helped quite a lot by Fulham.
Yeah, I think this was a slightly fortunate win for West Ham. You take it, obviously, all day. But, they showed signs in their FA Cup game against Aston Villa, and again today, just a little bit more attacking intent. But, yeah, they had 4 shots and resulted in 3 goals. So pretty clinical, perhaps not sustainable. Fulham had 21 shots, 5 on target. And as you mentioned, a couple of gifts from Bert Leno,
which is sort of fair enough, right?
I mean, it's almost like he forgot that Danny Ings was still a thing, and suddenly he was there.
He's not the only one.
Fair enough. Yeah, exactly. Which is fair. Pereira obviously just passing it to Carlos Soler as well. So I mean, Marco Silva must be absolutely fuming after that, not getting anything, because they had a lot of chances. And right at the end, mentioning the lack of composure, Traore, who just went for power, shot, and found Rose from about a yard out. I mean, it's kind of impressive.
Would you have him in a similar spot of the rankings to Timo Werner? I think I would.
I don't know. I think Traore.
Yeah, you'd the opposite of putting your house on.
Yeah, maybe. But I think Traore creates more things for himself that just wouldn't happen otherwise. I mean, you could say similar for Werner. It's interesting that Fulham had 21 shots, considering neither of their goals were shots. I think that's quite that's quite a good stat, isn't it? What did you make of this game, Lars?
Jacob Steinberg described it in the match report as baffling, which I think is kind of covers it. I mean, the 4 shots, 3 go in type of thing. That's a good bounce for the. I know that's not what the new manager bounce refers to as, but sometimes you just get a bit of luck, I suppose. And I think Graham Potter is this sort of immediately sympathetic character. He's such a likable guy. Whenever you listen to him, he seems like a very logical heir to the Gareth Southgate throne, really, in terms of like a very likable football coach and a nice, seemingly nice guy in an industry where there are not that many of them. So I'm glad that the gods of football smiled on him and bequeathed him with the goals out of absolutely nothing to get his reign off to a good start. But they're going to have to improve quite a lot. Starting with finding, I mean, this breaking news that Danny Ings is still a thing is exciting because they have no other strikers. They started with Lucas Paquetá up front because Bo and Fulkrug and Antonio are all unavailable. So I'm guessing we'll see some kind of transfer activities from West Ham. Is this the most doomed position in like all of football? Is the West Ham striker? You could have an entire episode of the pod where we just name people who have played up front for West Ham in the last 15 years, and it would be a wild time because there have been so many strange and curious people have ended up there, and it doesn't seem to work out well.
The tragedy is, I'm absolutely bang up for that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was thinking, actually, that is right up my street.
Maybe one, if there's,
Gianluca Scamacca. Here we go.
Elon, remember him? Yeah.
Antonio though will be there. He'll be, he hopefully will have recovered, and he'll still be after signing another sort of 10, 11 strikers. He'll be there at sort of 56, still going, well, we've got Antonio. He could do a job. It's all right.
So no one plows a lonelier furrow, do they, than Antonio when he's playing. Who's the last genuinely successful West Ham centre forward? Do you think
Tony Cottee?
There we go. Surely someone,
Clive Allens.
Surely someone in the 2000s who scored some goals. Di Canio wasn't really a striker.
Frank McAvenny. Although Frank McAvenny doesn't count because all his goals came during the blackout when there was no football being shown on telly.
Yeah, producer Joel says Marlon Harewood. Was he? I mean,
Carlton Cole was kind of useful for them.
God, it is incredible, isn't it?
Although Carlton Cole doesn't really strike me as anything better than a 1-in-4 man. They could be doing him an injustice now. I haven't checked that or anything.
Andy Carroll was there briefly.
Yeah.
But was it successful? Probably not.
Wow, amazing.
Dean Ashton.
Dean Ashton, there you go. Dean Ashton was an absolutely brilliant footballer, and had his career not been cut by injury, I think he would have gone on to be, he could have scored a lot of goals for England as well. So I'm not sure what his West Ham record was, but yes. 4 games tonight: Everton, Villa, Leicester Palace, Newcastle Wolves, and the North London derby. Big game for both, isn't it? There will be a lot of noise if Arsenal don't win, given their little blip/wobble. Barry, you enjoyed Sol Campbell's trolling Google advert, which was, they get it note perfect, don't they, to be fair?
Yeah, it's really good where he's basically advertising to switch to some Google product.
Google Pixel or something?
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
And it's an advert that is, I think, very funny, but will absolutely send loads of Spurs fans over the edge into the madness. They will not see the funny side.
Yeah. If you are circling the madness, if you're close to the madness, this could really drop you in it, couldn't it? Anyway, that'll do for part 2. We'll do the FA Cup and any other business in part 3. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Some FA Cup business then to wrap up from Monday and Tuesday night. Leyton Orient beat Derby on penalties to set up a home game against Manchester City. Wigan won 2-0 at Mansfield. They host Fulham. Preston beat Charlton 2-1. They'll host Wycombe. Millwall 3, Dagenham and Redbridge 0. Millwall go to Leeds. Jack says, can we please come up with an appropriate name for the style of header scored by Millwall's Mihailo Ivanovic against Dagenham and Redbridge in Monday's FA Cup third round tie? I said it was sort of salmon-like in the intro. Robyn, how would you describe it?
Yeah, no, I've struggled with this because it starts off salmon-like, but the sort of rutting of the fact that he kind of nods the ball over the line with his head is it's kind of, I don't know, sort of goat-like almost, isn't it?
Right.
It's remarkable goal. Absolutely loved it.
I mean, if you haven't seen it, he's lying on the ground and the ball ricochets. I don't know if he's had the first shot and the keeper saved it.
He's had a volley that's hit the keeper. Keeper couldn't hold it, and the ball is on the floor, and he's on the floor, so he just nods it in while lying on the floor with a little wriggle.
But he can't get his foot anywhere near it, so he has to sort of head. He does really get a lot of purchase with his head. It sort of bounces into the ground.
Yeah.
So the salmon thing, they're typically thought of for their great leaps, which, I mean, he's not doing that. But on the other hand, if you've ever caught a salmon, what he does is kind of what the fish do when they're on the land. You know, they wiggle more sort of horizontally. So it's like a fish that's on the ground, that's on the land.
Well, they're suffocating.
Yes. Dying
the
horribly.
Fish.
You should kill them very quickly, actually. It's the humane thing to do. The caught fish.
Not Millwall strikers.
Speaking of Wycombe, which I think I mentioned a second ago, they're flying in League One. They're set to lose their manager, Matt Bloomfield, to Luton. Will says, does Lars know anything about the swathe of Danish players signing for Wycombe? Anders Hagelskjær and Magnus Vestergaard so far. Maybe more, and a manager on the way. Do you know these? You're from Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Tell us.
We do get occasionally there's random Scandinavians that I've hardly ever heard. No, I do know Wycombe. Aren't they owned by a guy from Georgia though? Yeah, I think they're at least part owned by a Georgian gentleman, which is very exciting for Wycombe Wanderers. You don't expect that for Wycombe to be owned by a gentleman from the Caucasus, but maybe there's a Danish connection there. I don't know. Should do some research on that. I
mean, probably we should talk about Garnacho to Napoli ahead of Wycombe's incomings, with our apologies to our friends at Adams Park. So Napoli interested in Garnacho because it looks like Kvaratskhelia is going to PSG, and that would be good in terms of PSR, I think, because he's a pure profit guy. Do we think? How do we feel about this, Lars? I'll go to you. You're probably more across all of this.
I guess it's it sounds like a PSR. I mean, he's not terrible, so you'd think this would be a player who, in a perfect world...
I hope you're not his agent.
No, but this is the thing. I think there's enough... I think we've seen enough from him in his time at United to think he could be... He's still 20. He could be very good. He can be frustrating sometimes. He's a very headstrong young man, but he's someone who's not cowed by the pressures of playing for Man United. And he's not an obvious fit maybe for the new Amorim system, but he's not a complete misfit either. He can play in one of those roles behind the striker. You could maybe play him as a wing back in some games if you're well on top of things. It seems like if it's happening, the kind of transfer they might not necessarily want to make, but that they maybe have to make for PSR reasons. It seems like an odd one. If you were going to trim the fat off the United squad, that's not necessarily where you'd start. But then again, you don't pick the buyers. There's plenty. If you could find someone to throw a lot of money at you for Casemiro, you probably would, but there's no way of doing that. So maybe you do end up having to let go some of your more valuable assets.
Lars, are you sad Kvaratskhelia has chosen PSG, if that's what's happening?
It's felt so inevitable for years. Like it's been a while since it's such an obvious fit because PSG, if that team, that entity makes any sense, it has to have like this kind of showbiz element. It has to be fun. It has to have players on the team that you as a neutral want to watch, to draw some attention to them. And Kvaratskhelia makes perfect sense from that regard. And he's someone he's not been on a huge contract at Napoli because they signed him basically from the Georgian league. He was in Russia and then had to leave Russia because of the war, and then he was in Georgia briefly, and then they signed him from there. So he's on a small contract. He's one of very few footballers in the world who can legitimately argue that he's underpaid. I think very few footballers can say that with a straight face, but Kvara definitely is. So him going to like a Moneybags club to get himself paid makes total sense for him. And they have the money to meet whatever asking price Napoli will set on him. So it makes total sense. It's kind of sad. I had him paid. I think maybe they don't have the money for it. I thought he'd be a great signing for Arsenal, to be honest, to sort of bolster that left flank, and the sort of tall, urbane, swarthy sort of Georgian technician would go down very well in North London, I thought. But, it's one of those things that makes total sense, but you're right, it is a little bit sad.
Is he tall? I had him as like 5'4". The Georgian.
He's not. Well, he's not tall. But he's got a kind of high center of gravity, so he is, and he's taller than most sort of dribbly wingers. I'd say he's 6 foot.
He is bang on 6 foot. There you go.
Yes, there we go.
Surprised me.
Someone should make a game where people guess how tall players are. It's really exciting.
It's a very good idea. Speaking of PSR, the Premier League has not charged any clubs for breaches of its profit and sustainability rules after all were deemed financially compliant for the 2023-24 season.
I love that that's news. Everyone's like, nobody charged.
Yeah.
They all followed the rules.
So on the face of it, feels good. I guess if you dig beneath the surface, they've all just worked out sell some kids somewhere else for buckets. So I don't know if the rules will change. Do love the lower league transfer window. I don't know how Oxford are doing in that. Cambridge just bought a keeper from Plymouth called Marco Morosi, and I looked at the comments, which are always fun. Unbelievable shot stopper, but his distribution is horror. Good luck to him, though. Bloke will kick it more times to your gaffer on the sidelines than a player on the pitch. As he fills you with this sort of enthusiasm. But if he can save a shot, then I'm all behind Marco. How are Oxford doing, Robyn? Gary Rowett came in, changed things in the league, but you got done in the FA Cup.
Yeah, that was disappointing. But no. We interviewed him on the Oxford Night podcast we do on a Monday. Gary Rowett, who was interested. Seems like a lovely bloke, but sacking Des Buckingham, I'm not sure I'm quite ready for a new dad yet. It's still quite raw.
And when you were interviewing him, did you sort of give off those vibes? Were you like sort of not talking to him and just like ignoring him, and he like kept showering you with gifts during the podcast?
That's it. Yeah, you better get me
to
something.
McDonald's.
Yeah. You get me someone decent in the transfer window, then maybe we can talk. Yeah. To be fair, I think that the chances of Oxford staying up now have increased dramatically. He knows what he's doing. But yeah, broke a transfer record on a guy called Ole Romani. Who no one really knows too much about. He's come from the Eredivisie, and he's definitely a ownership signing from Gary Rowett's comments.
Right.
That basically he doesn't know who the hell he is. And
Great.
He's seen a few clips. So yeah, it's a bit odd because he's he's got Indonesian sort of descent, which is our ownership. So basically they've signed him because of that. So I'm not sure if he's any good.
What is Oxford's transfer record?
So I think I need to look this up. I mean, it's not that impressive, but it's interesting that we've broken the transfer record for someone who I'm not sure we're going to see very much
play. Right.
Yeah. So we'll see. 2 million euros. There we go.
Okay. That's quite
Am I correct in thinking Patrick Kluivert's just become the manager of Indonesia?
Correct.
Yes.
Which means he might be rocking up just to watch Oxford run the rule over this kid.
He'll enjoy the three-sided stadium with a beautiful view of Frankie and Benny's to his left. Yeah, that's the real Oxford they all enjoy.
Patrick says, any of the panel have been fired from a falconry role before? Ben, hi Max, Barry and everyone. No comment to make. Wanted to make sure you and producer Joel were aware of this. No further questions, information required. Didn't dare click on the story on my work computer, says Ben. The headline, Lazio fire far-right Eagle mascot handler over his social media penis posts. Lazio fired the far-right sympathiser who handles their Eagle mascot on Monday after he posted a series of videos and pictures of his erect penis online. Falconer Juan Bernabe, who has been present at Lazio home matches with Olympia the Eagles since 2010-2011, posted the footage after having surgery on Saturday to implant a penile prosthesis to improve his sexual performance. Lazio said they had terminated with immediate effect their relationship with Bernabe due to the seriousness of his conduct, adding they were shocked by the images. The Serie A club had added that his dismissal would mean that fans would be deprived of Olympia's presence in Lazio's upcoming home matches, their next being against Real Sociedad in the Europa League on the 23rd of January, unless they can find another Falconer, unless, of course, the Eagle goes with Bernabe. Bernabe defended his decision to publish the videos, telling radio station Radio 24 he was trying to bring awareness to the operation and shared it on his private social media, adding that nudity is normal. I grew up in an open-minded naturist family. Does anyone have any strong thoughts on this?
Well, he's clearly very proud of this surgery he's had done, or this procedure below stairs. Unlike our correspondent, I did start Googling penile prosthesis yesterday, and it was quite a fascinating voyage of discovery. They are prone to mechanical failure and erosion, and Mr. Bernabe probably shouldn't have been showing it off until a 6-week period recovery period has elapsed, but he's clearly very proud of it. It's kind of interesting where Lazio draw the line, because a few years ago he was merely suspended for espousing some very far-right views and chanting in favour or in homage to Benito Mussolini following a Lazio game against Inter with Olympia the Eagle while holding him. Beautiful bird, by the way. He was only suspended for hard right views, but fired for hard on views.
Good. Okay. Yeah,
that's lovely stuff. I just wonder if that's the next set of, was he listening to the Guardian Football Weekly when he was getting this procedure? Is this the progression from the vasectomy?
Do you get a 2-for-1 when you get a vasectomy? Can you guess? Erosion sounds, because erosion to me is, it happens, on like
gradually over a long period of time.
Yeah, but it's like heavy sea winds crashing against the cliffs. Like, where's he standing for his penis to be eroded away? Over time
on the cliffs of Dover.
Strange. Exactly. Anyway, seems like that'll do for today. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lars.
Thank you, Max.
Thank you, Robyn.
Thanks, Max.
Football Weekly is produced by Joel Grove. Our executive producer is Phil Maynard. We'll be back tomorrow.
This is The Guardian.